Thank you for coming, Mr. Bob de Wit.
Thank you for inviting me. Nice to be here.
It's awesome that you're here. I just wanted to say how I know you. It's been a crazy story, maybe. You caught my eye because there was a guy on LinkedIn during a certain era with a certain virus that got kicked out of LinkedIn, and I saw people debating, and I saw people stating it was outrageous that you were kicked out of LinkedIn for saying the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And that caught my attention. There's something going on here. And then you came back. I bought your books, and now we're here. So thanks a lot for being here. The first book I read, Society 4.0.
Yeah.
But before 4, there's a few other numbers. Can you maybe take us all through that timeline in a nutshell?
Yeah, in a nutshell, my background is I'm a scientist. For the last 18 years, I've been working as a full professor at Nijrode. Before that, 40 years in Maastricht. And I started in Rotterdam. So I'm, real academic, writing books. There's one book particularly that is being used in over 70 countries at universities and business schools. That also brought me in different countries around the world in all continents. So we have seen a lot.
A strategy book, right?
It's called Strategy in International Perspective. Yes, last year was the 8th edition, global edition. So for a very long time, I was what you'd say an academic, teaching, traveling, writing. That was for a long time. That was what I was doing. Yeah.
And then something changed.
Yeah, actually something changed. That was 2011 was the beginning. To understand my fields, what I do is I read the future. So my chair is called Strategic Leadership, which is a combination of strategy and leadership, basically. And strategy means that I look at all kinds of signals, weak signals, and from there I make a sort of future vision. That's what I do. Yeah. So the future is in the present if you know where to look at, basically. Yeah. So if you look at the right signals, then you can make a sort of vision about what it means for the future. And then it translates into what it means for people making decisions about the future. That's basically what I do. And it is a multidisciplinary field because sometimes the future is related to technology and then economics and then politics. There's always something else. And 2011 that changed, and it was because of two things. One is that at that time I was also or quite often being invited for companies to make a company vision. That's what I have been doing for a long time. And there were all kinds of companies normally. And it occurred to me that increasingly I was asked to make a technological vision. It was much more on digital technology mainly. So there are companies like IBM and Philips and Lucent Technologies, but also, for example, the Volkskrant, a newspaper, talking about the future of newspapers. And there was also something else. 2011 was the publication of a book from Jeremy Rifkin that became a very large book that was called The Third Industrial Revolution. Basically what he was saying is that we first had steam and then oil and now we have computers. That's basically what he was saying. And from the beginning, I had sort of intuition, something is not right. Yeah, because on the one hand, I'm a real academic thinking, but I'm also very sensitive and intuitive. And my intuition was something was not right, but I didn't know what it was. And it took a couple of years in which I was thinking by myself, what the hell is going on here? In 2015, I was writing an inaugural speech for Nijrode. And writing that speech in 2015, and it was published in 2017, that was called On the Eve of a Societal Revolution. So basically what I said, that it is, and why was Jeremy Rifkin wrong? He said it were the third industrial revolution, meaning there comes a computer, but society will remain the same. That's basically what he was saying. And my conclusion was, and that's what was my intuition, whole society is going to change. So we go into a period of, let's say, 10 years in which everything is going to change because we have to go to a different kind of society. Now, I was giving presentations on that, also called On the Eve of a Societal Revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, within a few years, the whole society is going to change. And people were looking at me, it's a nice story, but I don't see anything happening. And, and the only thing I could say something, I was mumbling about yellow jerseys, but that was the only example I could give, basically. But I was waiting for that moment that really a societal shift would start and transition. And then it was 2020. You probably remember.
I was there.
You was there. I thought, well, this could be the beginning of what I'm expecting for a number of years. This could be the beginning of a societal revolution. So first I tried to falsify myself. You have to do that as a scientist,
Yeah.
As a scientist, if you have an hypothesis, you have to try to falsify it. So I did it. I calculated together with a colleague of mine, which is in science called the 4 eyes principle. You take someone else to control you. And he was a professor of mathematics. He is a genius with numbers.
Did you falsify?
Well, it was the WHO sets the IFR. So the infection fatality rate of COVID is 2.3%, which is an A virus. And because of the A virus, they can make all kinds of measures. And they make the calculations. For many years, I looked at the mortality of people. And I came not further than 0.23%, which is not even 8% of what WH had said. And I published that and I was kicked off, basically.
If it wasn't so serious, it would be funny.
Yeah. And there were a couple of other things also that I wrote, and everything I say something which was not fitting the narrative, I was kicked off. And at some point of time, I was coming back, and now I'm back again.
Now you're back again.
I'm back again.
And in that period, you published the book Society 4.0.
Yeah.
What is the 4.0?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Society 4.0 means that, we cannot imagine that there's a society different than the society that we live in. We have been only living in one kind of society. We think it's the only society. We think it's the best society. But if you do scientific analysis, that you see that what we are going through is not the first time in history. Actually, it's the 4th time. Because 4.0 means that it's the 4th time that we go to a different kind of society. That's what it means. Now, for a very long time, for over 2,000 years, which is quite long, for over 2,000 years, we have been living in an agricultural society. And that meant that if you have a lot of land, then you're very rich and very powerful. And if you did not have land, then you were powerless and poor, basically. Mm-hmm. So it was a society in which there was a small group of people that were very rich and wealthy. And you had a large group of people that have to see how they come to the next day, basically. There were very close communities, people that want to survive, the next day. And people thought it will never change. For 2,000 years, that's a long time. Eh? For 2,000 years, we had a society was organized like this. And there were even philosophers like Plato. And Plato said, this is the only way society can be organized. Because, leading a country can only be done by people that are rich, powerful, and literate. Because at that time, not everyone could read and write. So they thought it will never go to change, and it was changing. Yeah. And very interesting to know is that the Netherlands, our country, has been the beginning of that societal change, that transition. And it had to do with the fact that we started trading. So the Netherlands is well positioned, located for trade over land to Europe, but also on the sea. We've had a very long maritime tradition. And step by step, trade became more important than ownership of land. And that was also a period of change. And at some point of time, at that time we were part of the Spanish Empire. And Philip II was the Spanish king. Philip II was the king of the Netherlands. And he misbehaved a little bit with Alva, maybe you know that story. And at some point of time, the Netherlands said, we want to do something else. We want to leave this society. Yeah,
of the Netherlands, I suppose.
The people of the Netherlands, especially the entrepreneurs, the traders. Mm-hmm. And they started, and that was the beginning of the independence of the Netherlands. That was the Act of Abandonment. Yeah.
Plakkaat van verlating.
Plakkaat van verlating in Dutch, exactly. That was the independence of the Netherlands, the 26th of July of 1581. By the way, it was also the basis of the American Declaration of Independence and the French, so a very important document. So we kicked out Philip II, and then we came in the same period where we are now. Because we did know what we did not want, but it does not mean that you also know what you do want.
Okay.
So that was a period of 7 years, 7 years of uncertainty. People that want to go back to the past, so people want to change, so people want to misuse it.
So what you're saying is this is the transition between 1.0
Exactly.
and 2.0.
Exactly.
And we are now between 3.0 and 4.0.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we went into a republic, and that's important to understand because before that was a monarchy, which is a top-down society of an elite, and then we went to a republic, a trade republic, in which the traders were the leading force. Yeah? And remember that Plato had said that traders cannot lead a country. Remember? That was the beginning of the Golden Age, if you know. So the traders were very good in that. So for a couple of 100 years, we were a trade republic. That was society 2.0. And then we get the Industrial Revolution, the invention of the machine. Spin and Jenny was the first machine. One machine doesn't change anything. 10 doesn't, 100 doesn't, 1,000 doesn't. But at some point of time, again, we came into the Industrial Revolution. And we have to make a transition to the Industrial Society 3.0. So we have left the Industrial Society. And we are now in a transition to the Digital Society, Society 4.0. That is the context where we live in.
Yeah. One thing very interesting about your book is that you're painting the picture of us having a choice, right? So if we don't do anything, something else will happen compared to when we make different choices. Can you elaborate on the choice A and B and where you see us going?
Yeah, and also this, the choices is based on looking at signals and making a vision out of it, but it's also based on the past, because the same patterns come back all again. And remember that in the industrial age, in the industrial revolution, we also had philosophers like me, and one of them said we have to go to capitalism and socialism and communism and Leninism and Marxism, all kinds of philosophers having all kinds of ideas. At the end, it was more of a combination of all those visions. And it is now also. So I made two, in my book, basically what it is two things. One, I made an explanation of what the time we live in, well, we just discussed that. And then I made a vision of two possible future societies, chapter 5 and 6. And chapter 5 is called the Elite Reset Society, which means that we basically, there are a number of persons and organizations and companies who want to go back to the feudal stage, society 1.0, now at the global scale, basically.
Yeah. We would like to call that scenario B.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because?
Well, it's always better to go for option A. Preferred choice.
Right? Well, okay. Yeah, I'm a writer, so I build up my story to the happy end, if you know what I mean.
Thank you.
So that's the difference.
I'm looking at the time, but
yeah. So I described, that there are a number of organizations and companies and people that want to organize again, a top-down society at the global level. And there are a number of factors that are important. One is that the largest companies in the world are larger and richer than most of the countries in the world. And that changes, the power balance. Because normally...
A little bit.
Yeah, very much. Because normally you make laws in a country and the companies have to, obey the laws. That's basically what happens. But these companies are larger than all European countries.
Yeah.
So they're not obeying to the laws. They make the laws, basically. Yeah? They're so powerful. Then you have, at the global level, 40,000 international non-governmental organizations, NGOs.
Yeah, very democratic.
There's no democracy. These are, most of them are, good organizations, protecting lions and, and dolphins and whales and all that. But there are also a couple of them are, they're cooperating with those companies in some kind of areas, domains, you could say. And in 2020, we have seen what that means. Yeah? So that's why it was a good example for me. And so they want to make a sort of top-down society. And what's also important is that, and that is a development that was since the 1970s, it's called shareholder capitalism, also called neoliberalism, or Thatcherism, Reaganomics, all kind of words for that. Meaning that those largest companies also feel no responsibility for their behavior. They think the only purpose of a company is to maximize shareholder value. So they get all the profits, and all the costs are for society to solve. So that is one. So that's chapter 5, you know.
Yeah.
And then we go to to the pinnacle, to chapter 6, which is there is also a different kind of scenario possible, a different kind of society. I call that a global citizen society, which is a society which is good for citizens, not particularly for a small group of elite companies and shareholders, but a society which is actually good for people. So you build, and it was the same in the Republic. They rebuilt society from the bottom up, and that is chapter 6. And we take the interest of people and the happiness of people as the basis, and then it is, I call it global because it is more local. So in my future vision, we go back from country level to regional level. So that's one. That's what this book comes from. And at the same time, with all kind of digital technology, people are connected all around the world, and that makes it global.
Yeah.
There's a combination.
Can you give us some examples of where this really plays out perfectly and works for the citizens?
What do you mean in it?
Can you give us examples of scenarios where this is organized in a good way for the citizens?
Yeah. Well, I think this is a good example, basically.
Thank you.
Because I was very, very much interested in this invitation for this podcast, because there are a number of increasingly there are all kinds of initiatives that fit to that vision, and what you are doing here is one of those good examples, because what you see is that in that industrial society that we have left, there were a couple of things important. One is that individualism was in more. People became in that industrial society, which has been economically the best society ever. So we have never been as rich as now. But we have also become more individualistic.
And miserable.
Yeah, and lonely sometimes.
Lonely.
Yeah. And so we go back to us, or we. Yeah. So that's one. And one is and the other is that the important what the definition, what is value? Because in the industrial society, value was related to money. Yeah, so people wanted to go to school, get a diploma, go to work, get an income, buy a house and a car and a caravan, go on vacation and watch television, basically. Yeah, that was and people thought they were happy. If you have enough money, then you can buy all kinds of things, and it was all for themselves, basically. And you see all kinds of initiatives, and that's why this is also a good initiative. People say, I don't want it anymore. I don't think it's about money. I don't want to live on my own. I want to meet other people. We want to share a kitchen. We want to share all kinds of facilities. We want to be more together. And you see a lot of those initiatives, and there is something very fundamental about it, and that has to do with what I refer already to the individualism. Over the centuries, there's always been a difficult way to balance the individual and the group, or the me and the we, if you could say it. Yeah? For a very long time, if you go back when we are more organized as regions, there was much more we. There was you lived in a community and you had to fit in the community, and people took care of each other. It was someone old or ill or children. Everyone felt themselves involved in the community kind of activities. There was also a disadvantage, and that was that you had to fit in a community, and otherwise, you had a problem. Yeah, it was difficult to be yourself, if you know what I mean. So you were part of the group, or you were kicked out, basically. Yeah. So, And then you get, and that was the Renaissance, more of a rethinking. Yeah, but you know, I want to become myself. You know, if you look different and you think what you really want, you know, that you can also become yourself. You get a rebalancing from total we and little us, me. You get a balancing the other way. And in the industrial age, it has to gone too far. Yeah, it was all about me, and it was very little we.
Yeah.
And you should have, for example, that if you start working, then you buy a house, and then you sit there, you know, all kind of houses next to each other. Everyone is cooking for themselves, and the elderly are in an elderly house, and the children in a children's house, and the sick in a sick house, you know. So it was all those parts of society were separated, and there was a sort of government looking care of all the other things. And people say, well, first of all, a government is not doing what they're promised.
What is government?
Yeah, well, that's everything that you pay taxes for,
Okay.
and that's from all people combined, basically. Yeah. Don't you think it's good definition?
Great definition.
Yeah, great definition. So normally it was organized in such a way that, for example, in the Republic, where we're a republic, one of the things we are angry at Philips II was what they call the tiende penning, so the 10% tax.
Yeah.
And said 10% tax, you know, that is fraud, you know, and they kicked him out because they found it fraud. At that time, you know, everything was done by the people in the area itself. Yeah, education was organized, and people that were sick were organized. They took care of themselves, and only a small part, for example, the army, was something that you do as a country, but the whole was very little. Over time, it was more and more government, and especially in the industrial age, you had the verzorgingsstaat. Yeah, we had a Prime Minister, Drees, remember that? Who said, you know, father states will take care of you.
Take care of you.
And that was the idea, said, well, if you work, then we do the rest, basically. Yeah. Now, what happened in the 1970s with neoliberalism is that everything that make money from the public activity were making money were outsourced and sold to companies. And everything that was still costly stayed within the government.
So we got individualistic and we got a little lazy, right?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about your personal opinion about this? What should we do to government if you were to redesign the entire system? Should we keep a government, or what? Does it get a different function, or what? What would be ideal?
Yeah, well, over the different societies that I described, the role of government has changed all the time. Mm-hmm. And so I also expect it has to also change. And if I look at a number of large trends, then you see that more and more citizens and entrepreneurs want to take care for themselves. They want to not leave it to the government, they want to do it themselves, you know. All kind of living communities, they say, well, we want to be self-sufficient, we make our own food and we make our own water and we look for the kids and for the elderly, which means that increasingly the role of government, especially at the national level and European level, becomes less important.
Yeah.
If I would start again, you know, with the current tokens and the current signals, and there is no government at all, there's nothing, everything has to be reorganized, I would make a very small government and leave a lot to the people themselves. Yeah, which means that at least 50% of the civil servants would be fired.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's also something else, which is, and that there's one of the elements, one of the characteristics of this digitization. People underestimate the importance of all kinds of technologies going on. And we're talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about blockchain technology, but also robotics and all kinds of other technologies. If you look at the developments in all those technologies, it goes very fast with companies like Tesla, Boston Dynamics, all kinds of technology companies, Meta and all those companies. it goes very fast.
Yeah.
You know, developments are, you know, that it goes so fast, people don't understand it anymore. And even faster, it goes in China.
I know. I've lived in China for 2 years, and I really felt like when I touched the ground there, I felt it vibrating like a heartbeat that was always alive. And so
Yeah.
and when I came back, it felt like Amsterdam was a village.
Yeah.
Can we opt out of the scariness of society and technology in a way?
What do you mean scariness?
Well, I heard you speak about the speed of development with ASI,
Yeah.
artificial
Super intelligence,
intelligence. Can we in one way or another opt out of the influence? And can we in one way or another opt out of the monster that is being created?
Okay. Yeah.
I'm shifting gears here a little.
Yeah, I see that. But I need one small step before I go to your, if you don't mind. And that is that one of those enormous consequences of the technology is it goes so fast that paid labor. So this is in this society we had an economic system based on the fact that you're going to work and get income. You know, that was the whole idea. Now, the technology goes so fast that the whole economic model of people working, paying taxes, and doing that, and is not working anymore. Yeah?
Okay.
So what we do is we have to go back to the regions. We have to go back to communities, taking care of everything that's important, including food and these kind of things. So we go to a smaller scale, while all the work is being done by the technologies. So for example, that's why I mentioned China. You can already look at Alibaba. You can already buy robots, that you take in your house. They clean in your house, they make the food, and they go to the supermarket to get your groceries. Yeah, can you imagine? And that will be very cheap if you mass produce that. That is not very expensive. So, and that's changing life a lot. And that also means that you have to rethink, why am I on this planet, by the way? Yeah, because in the industrial age, it was you get the diploma, I told you, you go to work, you get income, blah, blah, blah. It was a very nihilistic way of looking at life. And now we have to rethink about what is the purpose that we are here and what's the purpose of life. Yeah, because you're not getting busy working, and looking at getting a car. So you have to go inside yourself and think again, what am I doing here, by the way? And especially, you mentioned ASI, and ASI, that means that artificial superintelligence, that's the moment where artificial intelligence will surpass humans in intelligence.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, humans are not the most intelligent on the planet anymore.